Hey guys, Sean here. Today, Luke and I are back with another tier list. Today we'll be ranking the best dragon decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been filled with insane dragon decks throughout the years. A staple of the game, there's always been meta-relevant dragon decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! And they're just like the coolest kind of decks in the game. So today we'll talk about which ones are the best. So we have some tiers here. We have Dragon These Nuts, Senpai Dragons, Based Eyes Epic Dragon, The Games Will Drag On, and that's all. So let's get right into it. We have a banger to begin with. Blue Eyes White Dragon.
I would put Blue Eyes very, very high. I would say probably at the top of Senpai Dragons to start us off. Blue Eyes, of course, as you know, Kaiba's main boss monster. Blue Eyes, of course, there's only 3 in existence and Kaiba has all 3 of them, so he's just untouchable. He is the greatest dragon of all time. He's the ultimate dragon in terms of attack and defense.
That's just how it is. It's even won a world championship. Not many decks on this list have won a world championship. You can't deny it. It's iconic. It's Blue Eyes White Dragon. This game would be nowhere near as popular if it wasn't for Blue Eyes White Dragon. So Blue Eyes White Dragon is the best dragon deck in the game. So thanks for watching, guys. Next up we have Dragoonity. Dragoonity is really cool. I really like Dragoonity as a deck. It's actually one of those dragon decks that's like decent. It doesn't rely on other dragon stuff too much. You can just play like a Dragoonity deck because they all revolve around like wind dragons, which there's very few kind of wind dragons in the game. Most of them are Dragoonity cards. There's a lot of really cool Dragoonity cards that go in generic stuff like Dragon Link because you have Romulus, you have Dragon Ravine, you have all this cool stuff. So yeah, I think there's a really cool deck. I wish they were a bit better and I wish they were more popular because they're just really cool. Their boss monsters are awesome. They have a cool gimmick where like you equip your Dragoonity monsters to them to gain effects and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the main fall down point of Dragoonity, of course, they have been around for a long time, so people do know how to face the decks, and also a lot of their smaller monsters are little weenies they're able to beat over and things as well. The idea of them being able to equip to themselves from the graveyard is a good idea in concept. However, considering the amount of grave disruption that people run in their side deck and everything like that, you can pretty much know how to well equip yourself using Ghost Bells and DD Crows and things like that, even a Necro value depending on the right deck. Dragoonity is pretty cool, but it's one of these decks that a lot of people can kind of take on because they know the main gimmicks of it.
Next up we have Supreme King. They're not good. Now, as a dragon deck, right, like Supreme King is a dragon. Some of the support cards are dragons, some of them aren't, but that's fine. It's not really a dragon deck. You wouldn't really use like generic dragon support, but they do have dragons, so we do include it. Technically, we can include decks like the XYZ dragons, Clear Wings, all that, because storing Venom and all that, because, you know, in the lore and in kind of the way you play the deck, they are relevant. Obviously, you won't summon Supreme King using like all different dragons. You'll either use the trap card that summons it, or you'll use like the Pendulum Magicians. But, you know, it's kind of a dragon deck, but it's not very good. The most relevance I've seen from this card is just like in Dynamorphia, because it pays half your life points and it gets like a big guy on field. Other than that, it's not a great dragon deck. Next up, we have Gandora. Again, kind of not really a dragon deck. Gandora has a lot of dragon cards and a lot of different forms of Gandora. And Gandora is like an insane card. One of the Gandora cards is banned. The original Gandora was just really good when it came out. I love Duel Links, guys. It was really good in Duel Links and super cool. It got new support recently. It basically just banishes a bunch of things and gains attack for however many things are banished. Kind of like Grenmaju in that way. It's really cool, and I think it's really iconic, and I think it's one of the coolest dragon cards in the game. But, you know, as a deck, it is not the best, but it's definitely better than Supreme King.
Who knows, there might be some more support coming up soon enough. So kind of early stage right now, it's not the best one that's going to be on this list, but I still am hopeful for its future.
Next up, Tenpai Dragon. We should have put it in Senpai Dragon, but this is like the best deck in the game right now. Definitely one of the best decks in the game right now. One of the best dragon decks, and one of the best fire decks, because they're fire dragons, not like the usual light and dark dragons. Tenpais are insane. They're an OTK deck, one of the first meta decks that is a blind second deck. It can even OTK through Prosperity, which is a card that most OTK decks can't run because Prosperity half the damage you do. But this deck just pulls out so much damage that you can just OTK even doing half damage. It's an insane deck. There's so few boards that can withstand Tenpai Dragon. People are even citing in shit like Threatening Roar, which is actually insane. Even cards like Curry Photon I've seen people play, which is insane. Bringing back Karibos in the year of our Lord 2024. Tenpai Dragons have changed the game, and they're just an insanely good dragon deck.
Yeah, honest to God, this is probably the best dragon deck that we're going to talk about this entire list, especially in this format right now. What's really, really good about Tenpai Dragons is that they were released not too long ago, but they're all in kind of really low rarity right now, that the deck has like a lot of accessibility to it, and it's easy enough to play because the engine isn't overly big, that you can actually just run a lot of hand traps alongside of it, so you don't have to learn a completely new deck with over 40 cards or anything like that. These have like a very small package, that's meta defined, and I definitely think it's a really, really good one going forward. If you want to play a dragon deck that can really help you combat the meta, this is the meta, and it's at an affordable rate right now that I definitely recommend it. It's definitely the best dragon deck right now.
Next up, Hieratics. Hieratics are a really cool deck, but they're not the best. They revolve around like 0 attack, 0 defense monsters. Some of the monsters in the deck are insanely good. Obviously, Hieratic Dragon of Heavenly Spheres is just a staple of any dragon deck. Being able to tribute itself to bounce a card and then after that summon any dragon monster from your deck is just insane. The bounce effect on its own is great, but then you get like advantage from that, which is just so good. Even cards like Atom, which is a generic rank 6, which special summons you any dragon from the deck, is just crazy. It's not as good, but it is very good. As a deck itself, it has some really cool like big boss monsters. They're not the best, but as a deck, I think they're really cool. They have really cool gimmicks. I kind of like the idea of everything the deck summons has 0 attack and defense. It's kind of silly, it's kind of cool. Their big boss monsters have a bunch of attack though, which is awesome. Yeah, I just think it's a really cool dragon deck. Next up, Number Dragons. This is kind of cheating here because we're kind of talking about decks that can go into number 97 Draglubion that can summon kind of any number dragon. So usually you'll summon like Numeron Dragon, but it can summon stuff like Hope Harbinger. It can summon some of the Galaxy cards as well. Kind of stretching it, but I think it's pretty cool. I think like Numeron Dragon is just such a cool card. I really liked when a lot of decks kind of ran a generic rank 8 package, went into Draglubion, and then OTK'd with Numeron Dragon. That was a good time in Yu-Gi-Oh, I think. But yeah, as a dragon deck, not really a deck, but it's all good. It belongs about the bottom of Based-Eyed Epic Dragon.
Yeah, it definitely deserves its place here right now, mostly just because it was a staple in a lot of dragon decks. The fact that a lot of dragon decks run a lot of level 8 monsters, you can just rank 8 into number 97 to go into whatever dragon monster you want. It's just really, really cool. It's a staple in Blue Eyes, it's a staple in Galaxy Eyes. I definitely think it deserves its place in this list.
Dragon Maids!
Senpai Dragons.
This is awful. No one likes Dragon Maids. Okay. They're insane. Everyone loves Dragon Maids. Top tier waifu deck. They're really cool. Their gimmicks are just so fun. So you have your small Dragon Maids, and then during the battle phase, they tag out into their big Dragon Maid forms. And then after the battle phase is over, they tag back out. It's just such a cool deck. They have Xiao, which is an Omni Negate that just goes back into your House Dragon Maid. Chamber has been used in so many dragon decks, it's insane. Their traps are really good, like Tidying, just bouncing cards, and special summoning if you banish it from the graveyard. They even have synergy with a lot of other dragon stuff as well, like Dragon Rulers, like Bestials, a bunch of stuff. They're awesome. Everyone loves Dragon Maids. I wish they were a bit better, but they're still pretty damn good. They're pretty cool, and we can't put them any lower than this because they're based.
Yeah, we are big fans of Dragon Maids on this channel. We've done a few profiles on them if you guys want to check those out. We think they're really, really good, although they can use a bit more support. As Sean mentioned, Chamber's been used a lot in a lot of different dragon decks as well. What I really, really like about Dragon Maids is that all of them are different attributes, and I really, really like decks that can use multiple different attributes. Just because I think it's really, really cool rather than relying on the one. They're not really weak to other decks like Bestials or anything like that. They do have a few light and dark monsters, however, the main Dragon Maids themselves are usually wind and fire, so it's a really, really cool dragon deck.
Next up, Red Dragon Archfiend. Now the main deck is not full of dragons, but all the extra deck stuff are dragons, and they're just awesome. They can run Bestials very well. Their deck is just awesome at getting out like big synchro dragons. They've seen a good bit of meta success, which is great to see. I mean, just because of that, I probably think they're better than Dragon Maids.
Yeah, honestly, I was going to say that. I put them just above Dragon Maids. Not only that, but also because they're the antagonist boss monster in 5Ds. They definitely have a lot of fan love around it, and they get a lot of support as well. So I definitely think it serves its place next to Blue Eyes.
I mean, Jack Atlas is a Giga Chad, so I think him and Kaiba would be best buds. So they belong next to each other. Next up, Malefics. Malefics are a dragon deck because almost all their monsters are dragons. But like, they're only okay. I think they're awesome. I think Malefics are such a cool archetype. But they're just not good. It's very sad, but you know, they're a cool deck. Bringing out like evil versions of like the ace monsters of the main characters is really cool. It's kind of easy ways to summon big bodies, so you can just summon like Stardust Dragon, Cyber End Dragon, the Malefic versions of them, basically for free as long as you have a field spell on the field. It's just a cool deck. It's not anything special, not like meta defining or anything like that, but I think it's a really cool deck, so I think it belongs about here. Next up, Felgrand. Felgrand really tried to be like a good dragon deck, but unfortunately it's not. It's so funny because Felgrand looks insane, it looks super intimidating. All its cards are like worshipping the Dragon of Felgrand, but it just kind of sucks. It was maybe decent for the time, but they just never really gave it anything good to work with.
Yeah, it's definitely very lackluster. Maybe it might have some support in the future that might like bring it up a little bit, but as of right now, it's just not in a good spot right now. Definitely on the very, very lower end of this list.
Stardust Dragon, again, it's kind of like, we're not counting it as Synchrons because we're talking about the Stardust cards themselves, right? Stardust has a few main deck dragon monsters, and the Stardust Synchros, like the specifically Stardust Synchro monsters, are pretty cool. They're difficult to get out, but some of them are very, very strong. Cosmic Blazer Dragon is an insane card. Even like Majestic Star Dragon is pretty cool. A lot of its extra deck cards are insanely good. The only problem is you're locked into playing like a Stardust deck, so you can't really put these in any kind of like generic decks. I think it's a really cool synchro deck, one of the coolest synchro decks, but not the best. Not nearly as good as Synchrons, but they're really cool.
Yeah, Stardust Dragon himself is actually a really, really good card. Of course, the staple in Edison and everything like that. But in terms of the Stardust Dragon archetype themselves, it can be really, really tricky to get your head around. A lot of them, you need synchros to specifically to go into your synchros, and that could just be really, really frustrating. It's definitely a good package to have in like Synchron builds and things like that. But Stardust Dragon deck on its own, kind of middle of the range when it comes to dragon decks. So definitely in the middle here in Based Eyes Epic Dragon.
Next up, Light and Darkness Dragon. It's actually becoming a deck. Let's go. It doesn't seem like it's becoming a great deck, but it's a dragon deck at least, more than Gandora is. So I think it probably goes around here. The support seems pretty cool. Light and Darkness Dragon is like a good card in general. Hard to get out, but really good. The support seems pretty cool. It doesn't seem like too good, but it's very awesome support. We have new fusions. We're kind of going back to the Light End and Dark End Dragon, which is really cool. I'm not sure how well this deck will do, but it's great to see an old card getting new support and becoming like an actual archetype now. You can play a Light and Darkness deck, which is really cool because before you could only just play Light and Darkness Dragon. And obviously a staple of Edison, so it's really cool to see. Next up, Dragon Rulers. I think for the legacy alone, they belong in the top tier.
Oh, absolutely. Dragon Rulers were absolutely insane, especially at the time. They debuted in Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy, and the fact that all of the cards were either rares or less, they were really, really cheap, and people just loved these things. They were really easy to get out. They were an explosive deck. It was so good, and the fact that pretty much most of the Dragon Rulers are still limited on the ban list right now just shows their power. They have a spot right now in other decks like Dragon Maids and things like that, because you can't really have a full-on Dragon Ruler build just because of the cards all being kind of limited. The legacy of it, of course, is just really, really good. Dragon Rulers are really, really fun dragon deck. This is what I think of when people talk about dragon decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just really, really explosive deck that can bring out a lot of big boss monsters that are able to go into even bigger Xyz monsters or even Link monsters and everything like that. And the fact they're all different attributes as well is another bonus in my book. That way they're not weak to bestials. I definitely think Dragon Rulers are in the upper tier of this list.
Another cool thing about Dragon Rulers is that they find their place in a lot of different decks. So some people are running Tidal in tier, which is kind of crazy. A lot of people are running Blaster in their Tempai decks. And Tempest is a staple of a deck we'll see soon, Armed Dragons. It's awesome to see that Dragon Rulers can be put in so many different decks. It goes to show how strong each individual Dragon Ruler is, and obviously they were an insane deck when they came out. One of the first tier 0 formats. Their legacy is crazy, definitely one of the top decks. Next up, Draco Slayers. Funny enough, in modern Draco Slayer decks, they don't run any of the dragon cards because they kind of suck. But they're cool. They're like not bad. Like Draco Slayers as an archetype is just a really good control deck. Really annoying to play through. They tribute summon themselves using spells and traps. Whenever your opponent activates stuff, you can just keep adding stuff. They don't run an extra deck, so you can run like good monarch cards and stuff like that lock your opponent out of the extra deck and stuff like that. As a dragon deck, a lot of people don't play the dragons, but they have dragons. And we can't forget Masterpiece, which is an insanely broken card, which is a dragon and is banned. So yeah, they're pretty cool. As a dragon deck, I mean, they're probably better than Light and Darkness Dragon, to be honest. But yeah, I think they go about here. They're cool. Armed Dragon!
Oh, I wish these were better.
Yeah, I think like maybe here, because as a dragon deck, they function more than Draco Slayers.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing about Armed Dragons is that they're just a little bit slow. They were good in concept, especially when they first debuted. Of course, that was very early in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's kind of like around the GX era. I do like the idea of smaller monsters are able to level up into bigger monsters over time, just considering how explosive the game has gotten in recent years. Although they do have new support that came out in Lightning Vortex, I do think that they were trying to give them some good potential, but they really fell flat. Monsters that start off with small levels and can slowly go up and up, they're just too slow for the game right now. They're just very, very slow. I think that there might be a place for them if they get the right support, but unless they solve some of the bigger issues like that, it's definitely kind of like a mid of the range, maybe on the lower end in terms of dragon decks.
Next up, Amorphage. They're bad. There's not much we can say about this deck. They're like a pendulum deck. They're okay. I don't know if Amorphactor Pain is included in this archetype, but that's a good card. But the deck is just nothing to write home about. However, Odd Eyes, best pendulum deck in the game, it does have some genuinely good extra deck cards that are fairly generic for certain decks. Odd Eyes was like decent when it came out. The better cards are like the Performapals, so as like a dragon deck, it's nothing crazy, but like they're cool-ish. They're good enough. Odd Eyes Vortex and then your Odd Eyes Xyz card, they're pretty damn good. There's some like ritual cards that are great in like Voiceless Voice and stuff like that. They have, I mean, I guess because they have a lot of good generic stuff, they're more generic than Stardust, so they probably belong around here. It was a good first try at like pendulums. I think they're pretty cool as a pendulum dragon deck. Next up, Bestials, 100% one of the best dragon decks in the game. Again, you kind of can't call it a dragon deck because it has so few cards, but as a dragon engine, it is insane. Lubellion just searches any Bestial. They work so well with like decks like Branded and any dragon deck, but specifically Branded, they work so well with them. On Master Duel, it's all limited to one. All the Bestials limited to one because they're just too broken. Magnamut searches any dragon, so literally Magnamut on its own goes into every single one of these decks because it searches any dragon in the game. They're just insane. They're just so damn good. Druid Swarm is just great at like getting rid of monsters. They're even like hand traps because they can banish your opponent's light and dark monsters in their grave as quick effects. So during tier format and other formats, they're just fantastic as interruption and gaining advantage. So, I mean, just one of the best kind of like dragon engines or dragon decks the game has ever seen.
Yeah, Bestials will be around for a long, long time. As long as there's always going to be light and dark decks that are topping events, Bestials are always going to be a good engine. Whether that be in the side deck or main deck, Bestials are always going to find a place in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Next up, Dragon Link. I know it's kind of cheating, but Dragon Link is one of the best decks Yu-Gi-Oh's ever seen in terms of itself and in terms of being a dragon deck. It just incorporates every single good dragon card into a deck, and it's just always relevant. It's always in the meta. It's still like relevant now. It's topped a bunch even after Borreload and Barone have been banned. It's just a deck that never goes away because dragons are just like the pinnacle of Yu-Gi-Oh! Dragons have always been in Yu-Gi-Oh! They always get support. All the dragon support is very specifically dragon support. It's never really locked into an archetype. So Dragon Link just gets to play with every single good dragon card in the game. So it's definitely one of the best decks in the game and the best dragon deck in the game. Rose Dragons, they're not very good unfortunately, but they're really cool. Black Rose Dragon on its own is a really good card. The new Rose Dragon support is okay. It can kind of help you turbo out Black Rose Dragon. Some of the new Black Rose cards are really good in decks like Tenpai. So your Black Rose Dragon, Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, and your Ruddy Rose Dragon are all fantastic in decks like Tenpai. As a deck itself, nothing too crazy. Turboing out Black Rose Dragon is not enough in the modern day. Again, I know I keep saying it, really cool, dragons are just cool in general, but really cool, and obviously a stable of Edison. So yeah, I think it belongs around there. Red Eyes Black Dragon, it's, okay, let's be fair. I mean, let's be actually fair. It's more of a dragon deck than all these, and it has some stuff. Now, Red Eyes has some like generic good stuff. It has Black Metal Dragon, which can search you Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. It has the level 6 guy who's using Dragon Link because it dumps a normal monster. It just has a lot of really, really good cards, but the deck itself, it sucks. It wants to be everything, but it can't be anything.
Yeah, it's just a little bit confused. It wants to be a burn deck, it wants to be a deck that's able to bring out big beaters, it wants to be control. You just can't be everything at once. Unfortunately, Red Eyes was just misconstrued a lot. Honestly, the best Red Eyes card just saw better play in multiple other decks, such as Branded and everything like that. Of course, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is one of the greatest cards ever printed. Unfortunately, no one wants to play it in Red Eyes because no one wants to play Red Eyes, really. Fan favorite deck, yes, but still not a very powerful dragon deck.
Next up, we have Chaos Emperor Dragon here, but I'm counting this as Chaos Dragons, including Chaos Emperor Dragon, Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, Black Dragon Clap Serpent, White Dragon Wyvern Buster, Eclipse Wyvern, all those type of cards, any kind of Chaos Dragon monsters. They're not really a deck, but as cards, as kind of like a Chaos-y Dragon archetype, they're just really, really good. The Chaos Dragons have been staples of Dragon Link. Chaos Dragon Legionnaire has just been a great card in a bunch of different decks, and Chaos Emperor Dragon, one of the first cards to be errataed. One of the most insane cards pre-errata. Again, not really an archetype, but it fits into a lot of different decks. Probably better than Red Eyes, to be honest with you. Just Chaos cards in general are really good, and as Dragon cards, they're just even better. Next up, Guard Dragons. Guard Dragons have had some of the strongest Dragon cards Yu-Gi-Oh! Has ever seen. Almost all of them are banned. Elpie's banned. Agripane is banned. Agripane could just summon any dragon from your extra deck, which, imagine that in modern day, that would be insane. Even ignoring their effects, their Link Arrows and being Link 1 generic dragon stuff was just so good. So yeah, they are banned, they will stay banned, but you know, they're banned for a reason.
Yeah, one of these decks is just too good for their own right. They're too powerful to ever come back, really.
Tachyon, we kind of shouldn't like separate it from Galaxy Eyes, so we'll just rank Galaxy Eyes and Tachyon at the same. I think they're about here. They're like a good dragon deck-ish in like context. They're getting new support. They always get new support. The Photon engine is not too bad. Their XZs are pretty strong. They have a banned XZs that could just like dump 3 dragons from your deck, which is hilarious. But some of their generic XZs are pretty damn good as well. They're a good kind of XZ spam dragon deck. They keep getting new support, so one day they might be insane. But for now, I think they go down about here. Next up, Starry Eyes, Starry Dragon.
Terrible.
This is beyond awful. This is not even like a deck. It revolves around like fairies that get out your Starry Dragon. And it doesn't like dark monsters. It's like a light guy and he wants to shine and, you know, remove the darkness. So I think he does double damage to dark monsters. Who cares? This card sucks. Boral Dragons are like rockets and Borals. Insanely good. I think maybe just here because as a deck, as a dragon deck, it's one of the best dragon decks.
Yeah, it's definitely a cornerstone for Dragon Link itself anyways. So all the Boral Sword, Boral Ends, there's no Dragon Link without these cards. These cards are just absolutely insane. Definitely deserve in the top tier of the list.
Rockets as well are really good as an engine in a bunch of decks. So good in fact that they had to ban Borreload. One of the best cards the game's ever seen. So I think as like a pure, if you were to play any of these decks pure, I think Rockets would be one of the best decks if you had to play the deck pure. Now we're on to decks that are not necessarily dragons at all. We have Thunder Dragons. They're dragons by name, not by anything else. I think they belong about here. Here. Yeah, I think about there. Thunder Dragons are awesome. They are dragons by design, so that's all that matters to me. Obviously they don't synergize with dragon cards, but they're dragons in my heart. They're awesome, really strong cards. Colossus recently came back, so the deck is actually seeing some play. I just think Thunder Dragons are really cool. They do actually synergize with Bestials. That's a point. Bestials are dragons. Thunder Dragons synergize with Bestials. So therefore they're dragons. I rest my case. Next up, Cyber Darks. Technically more of a dragon archetype than any of these like last ones because it does have dragon cards in it. But they suck. they really suck.
Yeah, they definitely fall flat to the brothers that we're going to be talking about right now. Cyber Dragons. Of course, this is a machine deck, not necessarily a dragon deck. But Cyber Dragon, dragon's right there in the name. We love them. They're a great OTK deck. Of course, they're far from the one of the better decks on this list. Tenpai Dragons, of course, are just really, really powerful right now. Cyber Dragons will get their chance to shine. I don't think they're as good as Dragon Link either, but they're definitely among the top 3 in terms of dragon decks. Quotation on the dragon.
I disagree. It's the best deck in the game.
Fair enough.
So that's it for the best dragon decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Tier list. Let us know what you think in the comments. I tried to include as many dragon decks as I could. I think I got them all. Fingers crossed. Let me know if I missed anything. So thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments, and let us know suggestions for tier lists we can do in the future.